Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Male 35 UK here. My first summer between leaving high school and starting college, 6th form, and 16, I got my first job working weekends at my local branded corner shop. It was a minute's walk from home and pretty easy evening shifts on Saturday and Sunday. Plus, I would pick up any extra shifts from other staff whenever they asked due to holidays and sickness and so on, for a little bit of extra money. Apart from my job interview, I never saw the manager. Let's call her Felicity, because why not? So yeah, I never really saw her on site except when she came in as a customer. Not a big deal, since Felicity paid into my bank account accurately for the hours I worked, and all of my shift changes were dealt with by the assistant manager, who I got along with very well. It's also worth noting that I am not a confrontational person in the slightest, or at least I wasn't back then. But screw Felicity. About 6 months of smooth sailing later, the assistant manager has left to run a new store of the same brand, and the new one is brought on board straight away. Spoiler alert, we will call him Gary. And Gary is a douche canoe. The first weekend he is with me, Saturday and Sunday evenings with zero issues work-wise. I show him what I typically do with restocking and other basic menial work between serving customers. Close of that, first week on a Sunday, I sat with Gary in the office and mentioned that whenever a shift was changed last minute, I would go to the old Gary and the hours and wages would be sorted through them by the time payroll was completed. Immediately, this becomes a problem for him, as all shift changes must be approved by himself or the manager beforehand. I said that's fine, but sometimes I get a very late call at night or very early in the morning to cover someone sick for the open, like at 5 AM. So what should I do? His answer? That's their problem. They shouldn't be sick. Amazing. The toxic attitude isn't a problem, however. It's that this meeting took place on Sunday night after close. Now, as a side note, I play golf. And back then, I was pretty decent for a 16-year-old. I had qualified through a local and then regional competition, and was in the final of an amateur tournament to be held at St. Andrews on a Saturday and Sunday. This was happening a couple of weeks after the above, and so had booked it off and approved long in advance. It was easily the biggest competition of my golfing career, and the chance to go play at the home of golf on the old course. The next Saturday comes around, having not heard anything further regarding shifts, and upon hitting in at my usual time, Gary is there, and doesn't say a word to me in greeting, and barely says a thing to me all shift. This is not an issue to me. I've already clocked him as a toxic jerk, so I kept my head down and did my job as usual. At close, he locks up but stays on the premises, which is a little out of the ordinary. But I think nothing of it and head home. The next day's shift is the very same. Hardly a thing is said to me, and at close, he again sends me on my way but stays on site. As far as I'm concerned, it's not my problem. Monday morning, however, turns out it very much is a problem. As I'm getting ready for college, a knock at my door reveals 4 police officers. And after confirming that I'm indeed me, and yes, I worked at that store last night, I am grabbed, placed in handcuffs, and arrested for theft. And off to the neck we go. After a few hours of being booked in, searched, and left in a cell with no answers to any questions of what this shift supposedly is, I finally get asked if I know where Gary is. After mentioning that the last time I saw him was at the close of the shop that night before, when he stayed on site, I am told I was seen on CCTV by Felicity taking money. What happened to be the entire week's cash takings from the office safe along with Gary and leaving. This ends up being a fairly circular thing, with me stating I was not in the coffee at any point last night, since I have no need to go in it at any point with a manager on shift. And no, I don't know where Gary was, nor do I know how much money has been taken, or that I have taken anything myself. I have access to the office keypad entry, but no safe key. Only Gary and Felicity had those. For clarification, the safe allowed you to drop money in but required a key for access. And on the opens, that tells along with enough money and small change were left out of the safe for whomever was in. I end up back in the cell for a time. Once the door reopens in the afternoon, I'm very swiftly told that I have been mistakenly identified in a CCTV and released, inasmuch there was only one person seen on camera, and it clearly isn't me. They apologized as they had acted on the information from Felicity that morning before being able to obtain the footage for themselves. At least I got a ride home and a day off, I suppose. By this point, my mom had been informed of what happened and left work herself, and after a polite sit-down with the two officers over a cuppa as the story was cleared up, read as her 5'2" and size 6 frame looked ready to tear those 6-foot staff vest wearing officers apart from the ankles up. We are left pretty much laughing in disbelief at the whole situation. By this point, I'm just more relieved than anything. Once the officers have gone, we pretty much follow them out of the door and walk straight to the shop. As they informed us, Felicity is on site, along with another officer looking through all the CCTV they have of Gary. So we head through to the back, and like I said above, non-confrontational. I was pissed off for certain, but I wasn't in trouble anymore, so why bother getting any angrier? Felicity immediately apologized to me over what happened. I think a little under protest under the eyes of the officer, and maybe my mother standing there with a face like thunder. The apology came in the crappy form of "sorry what happened to you, but excuse," and that she had the wrong CCTV file loaded up. She then goes at one bit further and states that since they were now down on staff for the weekend, I'd have to have my holiday this coming weekend cancelled. Both me and my mom, also a golfer, laughed it out, genuinely thinking it was a joke. Nope, dead serious. She comes out with a whole "well, you can work it or look for a new job" phrase. I just smiled, thanked her for the opportunity, but that she can get lost. I turned around and had to gently shove my growingly apoplectic and lightly frothing at the mouse mother outside. As for the revenge part, it's pretty simple. I got in touch with the area manager after the weekend. I was ready to just leave it, but at my mother's insistence, I was to tell the higher-ups. They had heard about what had happened, but had not been told a part of my wrongful arrest or my reason for quitting. After all, I was a part-timer, just a little cog in a little industry, and having never worked a shift with Felicity even once. She and I had no working relationship. The area manager actually had the decency of coming to meet me in person a few weeks later at a coffee shop in the city to talk about my experience and asked if I wanted to take my constructive dismissal to a tribunal. I declined, as I had already got a new job, and jokingly, all I was really worried about at the time was picking up Steel Battalion, which had just been released from the game store 2 doors down before they sold out. They laughed. They went on to inform me that after a very short and a very easy investigation, they had found Felicity to have been very neglectful in both how she handled the theft and myself, but also that she had put herself down as being on shift every weekend at the same time as me to make up her hours. She was fired immediately and was told an investigation has been opened to find out more malice, so they can sue her for her illegal acts. I wrote a statement there and then in that coffee shop highlighting all of the above issues. The area manager left to take a phone call and came back with a big A-box containing Steel Battalion and its massive HOTAS. I still think that was a fair exchange. We still have the controller. The police updated me that Gary was caught 200 miles away a couple of months later trying to buy drugs from an undercover agent. Only a small fraction of the money was recovered, and he was already well known to the police up there. He had only been out of prison for a few weeks before starting at the shop. The staff told me the company took Felicity to court and she was ordered to pay the missing amount due to negligence. It's probably worth mentioning that cash was very much the main way of paying back then. I don't know the amount owed, but it was certainly several thousands of pounds. As the warden of the state prison, I had seen my fair share of crazy things in my time at the facility. I had worked my way up through the ranks and have been in charge of the prison for the past 5 years. It was a tough job, but I really liked it and I was dedicated to making sure that everything ran smoothly. So when Karen came storming into the prison, demanding to see me and complaining about the conditions, I was not entirely surprised. I had dealt with entitled visitors like her before, and I knew that the best course of action was to stay calm and try to reason with her. Karen was a middle-aged woman with bleached blonde hair and a face full of heavy makeup. She was dressed in designer clothes and carried herself with a sense of entitlement that was palpable. Mrs. Karen, I understand that you have concerns about your son's treatment here at the prison, I said calmly, but I assure you that we are doing everything we can to make sure that he is safe and well taken care of.
Safe and well taken care of?
Karen exclaimed.
That's a joke. He's been mistreated and neglected by your staff. I demand to speak with the warden immediately.
I am the warden, I replied, trying to remain patient. And I can assure you that we take all allegations of mistreatment seriously. If you have specific concerns, I will be happy to look into them for you. But Karen was not interested in hearing anything I had to say. She accused me of corruption and threatened to have me fired. She began to cause a scene, shouting and causing a disturbance. The other visitors in the waiting area were starting to get uncomfortable and some even left. As the situation escalated, I knew that I had to do something to defuse it before it got out of hand. So, I called in a few of my guards to escort Karen out of the prison. And that's when Karen snapped. As she saw me reaching for the phone to call the guards, she picked up a stapler from my desk and threw it at me with full force. Fortunately, I was able to duck in time and the stapler missed me. But Karen was not done yet. She continued to shout and threaten my staff as the guards escorted her out of the prison.
You'll all pay for how badly my son is being treated here,
she yelled.
I'll make sure to show all of you for how you've mistreated him.
It was a disturbing and unsettling threat, but we managed to get Karen out of the prison without further incident. Or so we thought. As one of the guards tried to take hold of Karen's arm, she reached out and tried to grab his gun from its holster. The guard was quick to react and managed to hold onto his weapon, but Karen was not giving up easily. She continued to struggle and shout as the guard pushed her face down onto the floor and handcuffed her. After the incident, an investigation was initiated and camera footage was pulled to determine what had happened. Based on the evidence, Karen was properly arrested and charged with attempted weapon theft and assault. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison for her crimes. Also, I heard through the grapevine that Karen had not learned her lesson while serving her sentence. She continued to cause problems with her entitled attitude and ended up getting into a lot of trouble with the other inmates. It was a sad situation, but I knew that we couldn't allow that kind of behavior to continue. I just hope that Karen would eventually learn from her mistakes and work on herself. Hey Reddit fam, don't worry, nothing crazy is going on with me right now. Things are actually great. But I know some of you do enjoy the stories of Bill the Witch's antics, and I wanted to come on here and share this one to end the year with. Strap in because this one is a doozy. This happened when I was pretty young, around 8 or 9. For some context, my sister Bill the Witch, for at the time of the story, was just as nasty, spoiled, and entitled as she is now. She's a master manipulator and perpetual crier, just like Bill the Witch. Whenever she didn't get her way, she would scream and cry until adults relented and gave her what she wanted. This is important, so remember this. We were invited to Pilza Witch's Aunt Tammy Christmas dinner that year. As I stated before, Pilza Witch and Tammy maintained a strained but civil relationship. Tammy's daughter Mary was close to my age. We're 3 years apart. Mary was born with a rare disease, so she spends a majority of her life in a wheelchair. Pilza Witch has always hated Mary because of this. Whenever Mary came up in a conversation, Pilza Witch would make nasty remarks about her. Tammy called Pilza Witch and invited us. They got to talking and Tammy detailed all of the food and preparation that would go into dinner that year. Pilza Witch acted nice and thrilled to be invited, but once she got off the phone, she was whining about it most of the night. Not to be outshone, Pilza Witch picked a pie, or tried to. It came out burnt on one side. She was never a decent cook. We got to Tammy's house on Christmas pretty late. Pilza Witch spent 3 hours doing her hair and makeup and changing her mind on whether we were going or not. She looked like a clown. She had gotten a perm, which was a huge mistake on her part. She did not have the type of hair that could make a perm look good. It had fried her hair so badly that it was frizzy and puffed outward like a pyramid. Just look up bad perms on Google and you'll get the idea. Her makeup was loud, blue eyeshadow and red as heck lipstick. This was the 90s and she never got over the 80s style. Gag. When Tammy opened the door, she looked horrified but quickly smiled and invited us in. People were already eating dinner. Pilza Witch complained that no one bothered to wait for us. Tammy told her dinner was ready at 5 and we didn't arrive until nearly 6. So it was her problem. Pilza Witch grumbled and I went off to find Mary and give her the gift I made for her. It was just a sun catcher I painted. Nothing special, but Mary adored it. Once we all had eaten, Tammy ushered us to the living room where it was time to open presents. My siblings and I got hand-knitted socks and $20 in cash. Admittedly, I had hoped for something better than socks, but I still said thank you and was pretty happy about the $20. Pilza Witch proceeded to throw the socks down on the floor and began crying about getting such a horrible gift. Tammy raised her voice and quickly shushed her. Pilza Witch cuddled Pilza Witch, shooting glares at Tammy for daring to give her precious angel socks. Tammy smiled and handed Pilza Witch a box that was slightly larger than the one we opened. Pilza Witch tore the wrapping on hers like she was expecting a diamond bracelet. She got socks too. Cue the cat butt face. Hilarious. Everyone else got socks as well. All the kids got socks and cash. All of the adults just got socks. Except for Tammy's parents who got a new cookbook and some baseball memorabilia. Then it was time for Mary to open her gifts. Tammy handed Mary a huge box and she proceeded to open it and picked up an American Girl doll. For those of you who don't know about American Girl dolls, these were like the Hatchimals of girlhood in the 90s. Every girl had to have one and these dolls were no joke when it came to accessories and clothes. They had everything you could dream of. They were all about inclusivity way before Barbie got hip with it. Mary opened the next gift and it was a tiny wheelchair for her new doll. She was so happy and everyone was smiling. Everyone except Pilza Witch Sr. and Pilza Witch and Pilza Jerk, my brother. Pilza Witch started crying because she wanted an American Girl doll. She had two already if memory serves me. She was pointing at Mary's doll, shrieking that she wanted it. Pilza Witch Sr. tried shushing her, promising to buy her one for her birthday, which wasn't for another 2 months. Pilza Witch's shrieking only got louder, and everyone was staring at her in silence in disbelief. Pilza Witch finally snapped and demanded Tammy hand over the doll. Tammy said no, and she and Pilza Witch got into a heated argument. Mary looked terrified while clutching her new doll as tears started rolling down her cheeks. Pilza Witch was still shrieking and trying to grab at Mary's doll, screaming, "I want it! I want it!" over and over again as Tammy and Pilza Witch argued. Mary held the doll just beyond her reach, telling her to get away. Tammy's husband Bob stood up and shouted over everyone to shut the heck up. Everyone went silent. Tammy huffed and told Pixabay Sr. to rein in Pixabay or we will be told to leave. Pixabay just glared at Mary after she grabbed her and made her sit down. Pixabay began whining again and Pixabay Sr. hissed at her to stop. Tammy turned and went into the kitchen and Pop sat back down. People were starting to leave because the atmosphere in the house had drained the merriment out of the air. Pixabay watched as Mary went back to loving on her new doll and she suddenly stood up and told us to get our coats. Just as me and my siblings were heading for the door, I heard a scream. I look back and I see Pixabay playing tug-of-war with Mary over the doll. Mary was crying, Pop was shouting and Pixabay was screeching. Suddenly, Mary goes flying out of her wheelchair, and she hits the floor so hard that it makes her wheelchair fall over as well. Pixabay tried running for the door with the doll, telling us to go. Pop grabbed her before the door could be opened and held her there as Tammy came rushing back in and seeing what was going on. Pixabay began screaming that she deserved the doll because Mary was stupid and shouldn't have been born. Pop was super protective over his daughter, and when Pixabay crossed the line, he began screaming in her face, and this is the one time ever that Pixabay looked truly afraid. She dropped the doll, and Tammy picked it up and helped Mary back into her wheelchair. We were told to leave and Tammy said Pixabay would be lucky if the police weren't called for what she did to her cousin. Now to look weak in front of everyone, Pixabay pushed over the Christmas tree and called everyone jerks before we left. Pixabay had to be dragged to the car by Pixabay Jerk, while she was screaming how much she wanted that doll and that she never even got one and was devastated about this for a long time. Tammy did not speak to Pixabay for many years after that, not until Mary's wedding. I hope everyone has a safe and happy new year. See you in 2023. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.